I never thought I'd have to sit in front of a client and tell them I wasn't okay. But last week, it happened. I've been a therapist for 8 years. In that time, I've heard everything: grief, betrayal, heartbreak. I pride myself on being a steady, unshakable presence for my clients. But lately, I've been crumbling. My marriage is falling apart. My husband of 10 years told me he wasn't in love with me anymore, and the weight of that truth has been unbearable. It all came to a head during a session with one of my longtime clients, Emily. She's been with me for 3 years, working through severe anxiety and self-doubt. That day, she sat across from me, tears streaming down her face, and said, "I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep going." I felt the words hit me in a way they never had before. It was like she'd spoken my own thoughts aloud. For the first time, I didn't have the words to comfort her. My throat tightened, and I fought the urge to cry. I wanted to keep the focus on her, to push my feelings aside like I always do. But when she noticed my silence, she tilted her head and asked, "Are you okay?" I hesitated. A dozen responses ran through my mind, all the usual professional reassurances, but none of them felt honest. Finally, I said, "I'm going through something right now too, and I want you to know that feeling weak doesn't mean you are weak. Sometimes just admitting we're struggling is the bravest thing we can do." Her expression softened, and for a moment, we just sat there in shared vulnerability. I didn't give her all the details. Of course, that wasn't her burden to bear, but admitting my own humanity felt like a small act of defiance against the perfection I'd been trying to maintain. At the end of the session, she said, "Thank you for being real with me. It helps to know even you have hard days." That night, I finally told my husband I couldn't keep pretending. If he wasn't willing to fight for us, I needed to stop fighting alone. It wasn't a magical fix. He didn't suddenly say he wanted to stay. But for the first time, I felt like I'd stopped lying to myself. Since then, I've been showing up for my clients differently, not less professionally, but more authentically. I've realized that being a therapist doesn't mean being invincible. In fact, my own struggles have made me more empathetic. I'm still healing, and I don't know how my story ends. But I've learned something. I tell my clients all the time, strength isn't about never falling apart. It's about allowing yourself to rebuild. And in that, I think both Emily and I are stronger than we thought.